Hey everyone, Jason back here from Locked In as we have a special guest joining us before his big match is kicking off in, tomorrow at the time of recording for Deadlock Fight Night. We got Hydration, who you might recognize from Hydra Nation. First of all, how are you doing, man? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I am phenomenal, especially getting to chat to you because I feel like we never really fully crossed paths when it came to Overwatch, but it's good to finally, get to talk to you in person. But what I'm more excited about, man, is what's been going on in Deadlock here. So first of all, Hydra Nation, the most dominant NA team we have, winning 3 weeks in a row in the Deadlock Fight Night, seeming to be undefeatable. How did this team kind of come together?
So before the first fight night, uh, some members of my team were not too happy with the current state of Mahjong and Krill, and like there's the Deadlock Deep State team that was really good, and we kind of just did a bit of a merge. Both teams were really solid, so I think they saw the potential in it, and so far it's been the right decision.
Saw the potential in you. Maybe that's the right way to put it there. Obviously, we did have a massive patch happen here, which changed quite a few aspects about the game. I want to get your thoughts when it comes to pro player, competitive play that you're seeing in scrims, and maybe what we'll see tomorrow at the Deadlock Fight Night. What were the biggest changes in the patch that has affected like how you play, who you play, items, etc.? Hit me with like your biggest, maybe top 3 that you would talk about.
All right, so the biggest winner, obviously, Great Talon. This character was somewhat decent before, but he's always had a bit of an issue of living. And now that he got a pretty massive buff, it's actually pretty relevant to his survivability because he does have a lot of lifesteal with his Renoveras. So him being able to dish out more damage, to be faster, to be more mobile, has made him pretty strong. Another hero that has really been affected by this patch is obviously Shiv. He got hit with quite the hammer, but he's I think he's still playable. I don't think he's dead in the water just yet. Maybe a couple more nerfs,
He
a
did
couple more
have
months
the
of nerfs.
highest win rate in Deadlock Fight Night. So that
Yeah,
was a telling sign of how strong he was, at least.
yeah, that hero was something else. And as far as like other heroes, I
Well, it
don't
doesn't
think.
have to be heroes. It could be like items, for instance. I know Majestic Leap's a big change as well. Also, the urn
Uh,
changes are huge.
right, right. So new Urn's pretty interesting. I'll talk about Majestic Leap because this was a very powerful item. Very good item for getting around the map, getting more souls, and for engaging. And it's worth to talk about that the biggest user of this item was Pocket. And with the changes to Majestic Leap, you're now not able to engage fights anymore because usually you would barrage as you're going in with the leap. But now people just shoot you while you're barraging, so you can't go in. And that has made Pocket a lot worse this patch.
And just to clarify, when you say not going in, for the people who might not have seen the changes, the second you get shot while after you use Majestic Leap means you can't like leap back down like you could before, right?
Right.
Okay. The urn changes. I know you hit me with 3, but we got to talk about the urn changes really quickly. I gotta hear your thoughts about how this works. If you guys aren't familiar, the urn now goes in different positions based off the net worth difference between the 2 teams.
Yeah, so right now, if one team is 10% net worth ahead of the other team, you kind of have to deliver the urn in the enemy's base, more or less. And this has made some very interesting situations in scrims so far where you're fighting in areas that you normally don't fight. Like, for example, that one warehouse by,
Yeah.
I believe it's the Blue Lane Walker. And like places like that, it's really interesting to see fights in those areas. But I also wonder if this mechanic is even like that good because late game, like let's say 20 minutes in, 10% is not that much. Like as you go later in the game, and teams are going to be pretty much even if you're down like 15k net worth. So it could like not be that good of a mechanic, but at least it's making interesting fights for now.
I think the way that you're describing it to me is kind of like a comeback mechanic early in the game, whereas later on in the game, if you're over 10% behind the net worth, I mean, even with it being like 10, 15, 20K, I think you almost still lose those fights when you come to the highest level of competitive play. It just gives you the advantage of getting there first to set up a trap, I guess.
Yes.
So one of the biggest changes for me when it comes to like Deadlock from other games as well is this whole draft phase, and I kind of want you to walk us through like how does Hydronation, you don't have to give us any secrets, go about deciding who to ban, and then of course deciding like who to pick, and more importantly, who plays what you picked.
So who to ban? I'll start with that. Generally, just ban like whatever's strongest. Like broken heroes like Paradox, Mirage, things like that. And every once in a while, if there's someone in the enemy team that if you get them off a certain hero,
Yeah.
it's like playing a 6v5, then like it's worth going for a ban on that. As far as picking heroes, it's kind of the same. Just pick the broken stuff first, and you really got to think about like the roles of each players. So you really want to make sure you have heroes that fit every role, and like get someone that can farm, get someone that can look for picks, get someone that can peel and rescue beam. And as far as like who plays what, for the most part, everybody in the team is extremely flexible, and like the people who aren't generally are just going to be playing a very specialized hero pool anyways, so it doesn't
Hmm.
really matter. And we just try to get people on comfort picks for the most part.
Okay. What about like as your comp kind of develops and the enemy's comp kind of develops? Do you adjust maybe your game plan, or do you strictly just picking for like what we feel like we need and what we feel like we're confident to play? Like, how often do you think about like the stage of the game? Oh, we have like we're gonna go for a really late game kind of setup, or like a really wombo combo heavy setup. I know we're really limited in the hero pool at the moment in terms of how many are in the game, but I'm kind of curious about your outlook on that.
Um, Generally, we don't really think too hard about that.
Okay.
For the most part, like if we want like late game, like we'll get like one hero, maybe two at most, because early game is just so important right now. If you kind of sack your early game for some late game heroes, you're just not even gonna make it there. So like getting early game heroes is pretty important, and you don't really like try to go for like crazy combos or anything at the moment, because if you just pick strong heroes and you just win early game, you're gonna have a very easy time in the mid to late game.
It's so simple. You just pick good heroes, you win early game, and then game's done.
Yeah.
Okay, that's respectful, I think, and I'm curious to see, maybe a couple months down the line, especially with all the new heroes we're being teased and shown and being able to test out where that might change. But looking at Hydronation at the moment, again, like the undefeated 3 times in a row champs of Deadlock Fight Night, what would you say is kind of the weaknesses of the team? Which I know you don't want to give too much away, right? You don't want other teams to figure it out, but also, what are your strengths as a team, especially with like the roster you have currently?
I think our biggest strengths is communication and just knowing like what to do in the map. Like our macro is like pretty good, especially compared to most other teams. And we're also like all pretty good mechanically too. So there's a lot of times where we can turn fights around being down players.
Hmm.
Our weakness, it's a hard question.
It's
Do you even have
honestly,
one?
let's be fair, it's a stupid question to ask because you guys aren't being beaten in NA, but it's also what team would ever tell you what their weaknesses are. So I can let that one slide, to be perfectly honest. Maybe to replace that, EU NA, who do you think's the stronger region at the moment?
Uh, Definitely EU. Like they
Okay.
have more teams that actually can like compete with each other, and that's like really important too because they can practice against each other and they can get better. Whereas like in NA, like we don't really have much of an option on who to practice against.
Hmm.
And if you're trying to play against EU teams, it's kind of rough right now because if we play NA, if they have players in like Russia, which a lot of them do, it's a 160 ping for them. And if
Wow.
we try to play London, we have two West Coast players, and it's 160 ping for them. And this game is the most unplayable game on ping I've ever seen. So it's really rough.
Yeah, man. Honestly, I'm hoping to see some like actual lands come in next year and get NA versus EU properly. Because every time I see EU and NA playing, I'm always like, there's always an asterisk next to the result of that game because ping plays such a huge part of it. But Hydration, I don't want to take too much of your time. I want to give you a chance to give some shout outs. Obviously tell people where to find you as well.
Yeah, so I try to stream consistently on Twitch, twitch.tv/hydration. And I also got a Twitter you can go follow. It's just slash hydration. And that's it.
Okay. Well, man, thank you so much for your time. I wish you guys the best of luck, not only tomorrow on the Deadlock Fight Night, or obviously right after this is being shown, but of course in the future as well.